Okay, so the reason why I've got all this hair all over me is because I just recorded a video cutting my own hair. I'm recording this during the COVID-19 pandemic because a lot of us are stuck at home and don't have access to normal things. Most of us don't cut our hair. I consider myself fortunate. I've been cutting my own hair for about 20 plus years now. I have paid very, very little for haircuts over the years. A good set of clippers goes a heck of a long way if you've got the comfort and the experience to do it yourself. I also, part of the reason, so I trim my own beard, and part of the reason for that is because I don't trust other people with my beard. I almost don't care what happens up here because I can always just buzz it all the way down to a 1 or a 1.5. So if I get a bad haircut, I don't care. If I give myself a bad haircut, I don't care, right? Buzz cut's actually fun and very comfortable. I love it. But I don't want a buzz cut down here. I love my beard. So anyway, I'm going to trim my beard. This is not totally out of control yet because I trim my beard often enough. It doesn't grow all that fast. But here's a little sort of, I'm not going to call it a tutorial, but a quick here's how I do it, and maybe this can benefit you. I'm a clipper guy when it comes to this stuff for a couple different reasons, not the least of which is my hair is actually so thick itself that when I take it with the scissors, or when I try to cut with scissors, it actually sort of like pushes the hair away almost. So especially if I'm trying to cut in here or something like that, it tends to be a sort of a problem. Since I know I'm going to have to sweep up this floor, which generally I don't. Usually I'm just cutting all the way over the sink, but for some things I think it's going to be easier for the camera to see it. I am going to do some things there, and then I'm just going to sweep everything up later. So we're going to start with the mustache, and this is just a super simple kind of short thing. By the way, so what I'm using, tools I'm using today, I've got my clippers, my actual full-blown hair clippers. I've got a small mirror, which is key to doing the back. For me, the trickiest part is the side right here, and it's actually the hardest part. I do these back lines myself, and I have no problem with them, but this side of the beard is the weirdest thing because it's not actually a full dead-on kind of like 180. Trying to come in at the side, that's where I have the least sort of confidence in the angle. So if you've got somebody to help you with this, that's great. If not, general rule for beard trimming and hair cutting is take a little bit off at a time. The slower you go, the less you take each sort of swipe or whatever, the less chance you have to screw something up. If you screw something up, you're only screwing up a little bit. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this a little bit shorter here, trim my mustache. I'm going to trim it out to the sides so that I don't get these hairs coming into my mouth. I like keeping my mustache nice and trim. I know the long mustache looks super cool, but I don't like eating my mustache. I don't like my mustache being in my food, my drink. It gets in the way of kissing, all that jazz. So I'm going to trim this up a little bit shorter, and just because it's kind of hard to see from that camera over to here, I think I'm going to show real quickly about what it is I do. So what I do is first I'll come in, if this has gotten down to about here or something like that, with my little trimmers, I'll come in and just kind of get the rough length and shape, right? And then I'll come across it both directions, both sides, just to kind of get all the little ends and stuff like that. Let's see how close in. Okay, I think that'll work. So what I do, as I said, first I'll come in, get the approximate length. We're already pretty good there since I actually trimmed my mustache a bit just a couple days ago to please my partner. She was bumping into my mustache too much. And then I'm just going to come across and get the ends, because I don't like hair in my mouth, generally speaking. Okay, so at a bare minimum, that's what I want to do. And by the way, if you've got a brush, something like that, to help straighten it out, that way you get a nice even cut. Okay, so this is about a minimum for me because that way I've got access to my mouth. But I also want to cut a little bit farther out, and this is the part that this is the area that worries me. I like as much of my beard as long as possible, just because that's the way I get the mass out of it. But these sides right here that are sort of like the ends of the mustache before really the beard comes in, these get kind of long and they tend to curl in and I still get hair in my mouth. And so I really don't like these guys. Because my priority for making this video is just cut my own hair and trim my own beard, I'm gonna do this over here. The actual video itself is sort of a second priority, but what I'm doing is I'm cutting out a little bit. And one of the ways that I can tell how far I need to go is just to open my mouth and kind of move around and see how I can get the hairs to move. And if I can get a hair in front of my mouth, it probably needs to go. So I'm gonna end up cutting out here to the edges, but not super short, because it's just this stuff right here. It's these guys. This stuff is sort of edge of mustache and not beard, and I don't want them in my mouth. So when I do that, you can see that they're sort of curling in front. So what I'm doing is I'm just sort of coming down against those. By the way, when you do this, you're going to get hair in your mouth, which of course is not fun, but the ultimate goal is to not have more hair in my mouth later. Another way that you can sort of gauge which hairs are the ones that are a problem is you can kind of come in here, establish a line, kind of lift stuff up with a comb and see where it is you're in mustache or where it is you're in beard. You know, if I want this line right here, I can just kind of come in for just a few of these hairs that are a little bit crazy up there. You know, comb stuff down on the beard side, up on the mustache, and I got a few of these guys that are unruly. Couple of these guys. Basically, if a hair can get in my mouth, I want it shorter. All right, that's pretty good. I can get perfection later if I want it. Now, a lot of people like to trim their cheek lines. I actually like my natural cheek line. So I'm not going to cut this, but real simple, if you do, what you want to do is you just want to maintain whatever it is. Like if you want some funky line, go for it. But like for me, it's just a straight line, and I would just be very careful with it. I've got a pretty steady hand and I'm good with a mirror. If you need a guide though, you could take a comb, lay it down, and then just hit from the comb up or something like that. But as I said, I don't like to cut any more than I have to. My neckline, when I start from a short beard, I'm starting from a buzz or something like that, I'll actually trim my neckline kind of like just under my jawbone, and then once my beard gets long enough to cover that, then I'll let it come down, and now I don't actually really trim my neckline, except just barely where there's sort of a few kind of rogue hairs, and we'll get into that in a sec. But key for styling, for trimming your beard is you want to trim your beard after you've styled it roughly the way you always style it. For me, that's pretty simple. After my shower at night, I put a little bit of oil in, not really styling it, but just sort of like, moisturizing, combing it down. In the morning, I take a cold shower to wake me up and get my nervous system doing its thing. And after that, I use a little bit of beard balm. Not endorsing these folks, but I like this. This is fairly simple. 2 ingredients: olive oil, beeswax. And it's the perfect consistency for beard balm, and it's got no crud in it, no oils that are anti-androgenic, anything like that. So anyway, put that in, really kind of working in my beard. This is the comb that I use because I have very thick hair and it's pretty long at this point. At first, and when my beard is pretty short, you know, I can get away with like one of these little guys. But that comb is just for a much shorter hair at this point. So I will comb down, possibly brush down, and then I comb out. Kind of get in, kind of fluff it out a little bit. I styled this morning, and like I said, when I styled, this is just it, right? Brush it out, comb it out, and then just brush it down a little bit. So whatever way my beard is going to naturally fall during the day, that's kind of what I'm cutting from, because that tells me what shape it's going to be in, so I know what shape I'm working to. Now for me, I'm not cutting it all that much shorter. I'm probably going to take half inch off or something like that. I like this general shape. It's just getting a little bit long. And when I get this sort of like fuzzy, kind of thinner fringe around the edge, I just like to tighten that up a little bit, clean the edges a little bit. So for that, it's all clipper, and it's all with a little lever all the way down, so it's nice and short. You don't want that extra space because then hairs will get caught and stuff like that. So if I'm cutting, this is just sort of freehand. This is very careful work. I want that guard all the way down. As I said, take a little bit at a time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just get some of these sort of like the fuzzy fringe stuff up here a little bit, just kind of tighten up the edges. I want to sort of come across and square this up a tiny bit front to back. I'm just taking a little bit of this stuff off, and I'll see it might warrant a little bit of neckline trimming, but probably not. I like to not trim my neckline. And then again, the side is going to be the trickiest part. We'll get to that in a minute. So here I'm just taking a little bit off at a time, and just to kind of set the baseline for where it is I'm matching, I usually start right here in front and just take a little bit off and then kind of work my way out. You know what I forgot to do was before and after pictures. I'm going to hit like just above my Adam's apple. And then I'll work my way out the sides. So you can kind of see I'm not taking an awful lot here. I'm just taking a little bit. I'm just trying to tighten up the edges. I like a nice kind of more defined shape. A lot of times what I'll do is just kind of square it across the bottom, square it at certain points, and then I'll round it as necessary to soften it a tiny bit. And I'm just taking little tiny bits, right? If you're just a little bit at a time, moving slowly, it's the safest way. By the way, new note, if you're talking while you're cutting, your jaw is moving. That's tricky. So if you hear me start to mumble, that's why. That's what I'm doing here, just so you can see it. I'm just kind of taking some of these fuzzies off the bottom. So that's all I'm doing. I'll keep on doing that for a minute. And the natural shape of my beard, I can tell, you know, just because it's the natural shape of my face, it comes up a tiny bit here at the sides. I'm going to go ahead and follow that now rather than squaring it perfectly and then going, because I've just done this enough times. you can be fast forwarding or putting the speed on double time or something like that to get through some of these tedious and boring parts. I don't have any immediate plans for video editing on this guy. And it's a good idea occasionally to kind of refluff, if you will. Every now and again you get a few extra hairs that were sort of hiding, tucked in behind somebody else. That just helps really tighten the edge so that the next time you style it, it doesn't look like it undid half your work. Okay, now I'm going to clean up a little bit of this fuzz out here, and I'm going to go ahead and fluff a little bit more before I do that. I don't want to cut much off. I'm not trying to really reshape my beard, but it sort of helps accentuate which ones are the flyers, if you will. So I'm going to be cutting like just a little bit right here, just to help kind of clean up this edge. And then I'm gonna sort of take at different angles. I'm gonna see these guys, just these little crazy flyers, just barely taking edges. I'm mostly just taking like tips of the hair. And then I'm gonna do the sides last, and I'm pretty conservative about how I do that. I'd rather have it look a little bit sloppy than cut too much off. Oh, and I just cut my hair a little before. So one of the things that I do when I cut the sides here is I actually kind of like pull it out back and then kind of cut to the best of my ability, just a line straight down. I said my general goal is to cut as little as possible while achieving the goal of tightening edges. I'll go ahead and do a little of this right in front of the camera. Just tiny bits. Just trying to clean up, tighten, sharpen the edges, if you will. Okay. Since I'm not as good with my left hand, I'm going to do it over here where I'm more confident. Maybe you can see the mirror, maybe you can't. It's also possible to do this with your, whatever, do the opposite side with your dominant hand. I'm just comfortable enough with my non-dominant hand to make it happen. I'm not taking more off down here, I'm just, because when I fluffed it again, a few more hairs came down, I'm just sort of going back over it to get the stragglers. Checking everything again. Pretty close. Now that it's been fluffed out, I get a better sense for what stuff looks like out here. I'm going to go ahead and really kind of bring this out. I want to check to see that things are even from every angle, you know, no matter how I sort of brush or comb my hair, because that's going to help tell me whether or not I've done an even cut. Close. Okay, so now the sides, this is sort of the real trick. Trying to figure out how to get a line there from the sides is very difficult for me. I'm sort of doing a 2 or 3 mirror thing. So what I typically try to do is just get as close as I can, and I'm actually just using a 1 mirror, and make as sort of straight line as I can by feel. And if I'm running down the same little line like right behind my jawbone and following that little groove in my flesh here, then I'm pretty confident that I'm going to make this line about right. So I'm going to go ahead and use this plastic combs to kind of frizz stuff a little bit, because that's what it does unless your hair is wet. Alright, so that's just me following that little groove right behind my jawbone. Do the same thing on the other side, kind of pulling a little bit of this highest, sort of like almost bottom of the sideburn hair out back, because I want that cut. Now let's see what this looks like from the back. This actually gives me a better view. It's just a little trickier to get angles right. I really like that on the right side, that's good. Maybe just soften that corner a tiny bit. See what this looks like on the left. Note to self, have the clipper off when you're coming in, holding it in your hand, trying to do some other stuff. It's pretty solid. I'm good with that. So let's see again what this looks like. Pretty solid even. That's just a fuzzy look. Then you bring everything down sort of styled the way I normally do. Check it one last time. Catch any little funky flyers. I normally actually hit the last brush with my little softer brush, just because I don't want to like flatten my beard. I'm not trying to beat it up, I'm just trying to control the frizz. hear the dogs. All good. So I am going to just catch a couple more funky seas. Little, like, how did that guy get missed? So good to go ahead and check everybody. Just these crazy little flyer ends. Like I said, I'm just going for tight and sharp, but not too sharp. I don't like that $1 million manicure look, which is part of why I leave my cheek lines. I'm not trying to look like I spent $100 at the styling salon. Hey, voila. It ain't perfect, but there's your trim it yourself beard trim. Thanks. If I'm posting someplace where you can leave comments, please feel free. And hope you all staying safe out there. Cheers.